So instead of quiet quitting, how about joyful joining? Joyful joining? Is this a choir? Welcome back to Wine and Chill and for our September student loan update. Which, for September, we're having a sober September, so it's pretty much been water and chill all month. And having made it halfway through the month, I miss a nice, clean glass of Sauvignon Blanc. So if you're new, every month we go over my six-figure student loans and how much I've paid off in the prior month towards my six-figure student loans. So that's what happens when you go to law school. You generally owe a shit ton of money. My starting student loan balance when I first started my student loan payoff journey, February 14th of 2020, was $304,680.17 trifling cents. And to ensure that this wasn't the lowest amount that I had ever paid, I paid $4 more than I did the prior month. So everything is retroactive. So for September, this is what I paid in August. And in August, I paid $140, which is so low compared to what I used to pay on the screen, you know, the receipts for if you're new. And I will be happy to report in September, I'm finally getting back into higher numbers because I've been making a little bit of cash over here doing full-time content creation, which is good. We're not going to be back to my regular like $5,000 payment, but it will be a little bit higher. So in the month of June, I paid $136. So in the month of August, I was like, well, let's just add $4 more to that. $140. I've also officially now transferred over to Advantage, and we'll talk about that in a second. My remaining student loan predatory balance is $171,139.97 trifling cents. Honestly, this is 3 months of basically $100 change payment, and it's not driving me up a wall the way I thought it would. It's just more so, you know, it is what it is. I'm happy to not be in corporate. I'm getting to do what I enjoy, which is make videos for y'all, talk about topics that matter to me and matter to y'all. It's been freeing mentally just coming to terms with the fact that I will pay the student loans when I pay the student loans. I'm doing what I can. They are currently still in forbearance. They will be in forbearance until December 31st, 2022, the end of the year. And January 1st, we are I would guess 99% likely we're going back into repayment since Joseph and his team decided on student loan cancellation. So $10,000 if you hadn't got Pell Grants, $20,000 if you got Pell Grants, and an update on that. They are using the tax returns from 2020 and 2021, so I will not qualify. Yeah, that was kind of a kick in the gut, to be honest, but it is what it is. I've accepted it. It's fine, I guess. I don't qualify because they put an income cap, and the income cap was $125,000, even though all 4 years of undergrad, I received a Pell Grant. So they said, you make too much money, girl. You're not getting nothing. And even though I got let go 2 months ago, yeah. Not a red cent is coming from Joe, so he will remain Joe to me. But again, I'm happy for all of y'all that do qualify. I figured today we would talk about an interesting topic that has been coming up on the TikTok, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and has infiltrated itself everywhere in the world of work, which is quiet quitting. So if you are familiar with my Instagram at Wine and Chill, you should go ahead and go follow. If you're not, every Monday at 9 a.m. we have a Money Monday, a live on the Instagram, where usually it's like a money related topic. Sometimes it's a labor related topic. This week we talked about the pending labor strikes that are likely going to go on with the railroad. The week prior we talked about quiet quitting. So a brief intro into quiet quitting, and I figured today we would do a little bit of more context into quiet quitting. And if you aren't familiar with the term, we're going to go over quickly what quiet quitting is, what it's been rebranded by TikTok as. So quiet quitting burst onto the scene. It's not new for Generation Z with this viral TikTok.
I recently learned about this term called quiet quitting, where you're not outright quitting your job, but you're quitting the idea of going above and beyond. You're still performing your duties, but you're no longer subscribing to the hustle culture mentality that work has to be your life. The reality is it's not, and your worth as a person is not defined by your labor.
So essentially, with quiet quitting, you act your wage, and you do not do additional stretch projects, extra work, other than what you are contracted to do, which makes sense because an employment agreement is a contract between you and your employer. They pay you to do something. It doesn't matter if they guilt you into it and ask you to do XYZ. You are only paid for ABC. In theory, quiet quitting makes sense, which is why quiet quitting has existed for many generations. Previously, it was known to Gen Xers, which introduced the term as quitting in place. Now, the original belief and ethos behind quiet quitting has become a little bit lost with Gen Z. The current version of quiet quitting is very much self-care, very much, listen, I'm burnt out, I'm tired, these people are running me ragged, you're getting what you told me to do, and that's it. I'm not doing anything else, which is great. Don't let them run you ragged for free. That's nonsense. However, the original quitting in place was a socialist design and labor forward theory and practice of, if we are not getting paid to do all the things to make the factory run, we are only going to do what we're getting paid to do, because essentially the factory will burst and combust if we don't do this free labor. And by all of us together, 100 of us in the factory, quiet quitting, they have to either A, address the issue, B, address the issue and pay us more, C, address the issue, pay us more, and hire more people. The original practice of quiet quitting was, we're all in this together. And I'm of the belief that if you get everyone on your team to quiet quit, trust and believe you're going to get a little bit more than if you by yourself just quiet quit. So with that being said, it's very interesting the way that quiet quitting is taking a hold. And mostly I would say the theory is very much, it's always across certain classes. So it's the laptop laborers. As a laptop laborer myself, back when I worked in corporate as a lawyer, when I was a DI manager, and now as a content creator, it's very much, if you work at home, it's so much easier to quiet quit. Who's going to check you? If you work in the office, you still could technically leave at 5. Are people maybe going to side-eye you and be judgmental and say you're being lazy? Sure, but also, who cares? Who cares? This idea of working yourself to death, labor, 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 as if there is nothing else to live for in this world is foolish. And we're seeing what people are doing. And I think bringing up what we talked about in the live on Instagram is a prime example. 100,000 railway workers in the United States are currently in negotiations with their employer, the various railways, on updating their contract, their collective bargaining agreement that governs what hours they work, when they're allowed to take time off, when they're allowed to take sick time. Essentially, a lot of these engineers and conductors who move a lot of our products, who move different parts for different industries across the United States cannot function as it functions without these people, are working 7 days a week, 80 to 100 hours a week, always on call. It is extremely unfair, first and foremost. Second of all, it is very dangerous to their health. Last week alone, 3 railway workers unfortunately passed away due to the conditions that they are being forced to labor in. One of the main things these unions are arguing for is, it doesn't matter how much money you give these people, you should not have people working 7 days a week. They want a life. That is not a life if you have to work 7 days a week, 80 to 100 hours of manual labor. That is not a life. What they are essentially proposing is, hey, quiet quitting is cute and all, but we need collective action together, because if one person quiet quits and the train stops running, the train is going to run over me. And the only, to be honest, flaw I see in the current iteration of quiet quitting is the individualism. But, this is America. You can't spell America without spelling me. The minute that workers in America and people in America, we're starting to see this more and more, decide to come together as a collective class of people being aggressed by the 1%, we will get so much farther. Particularly with quiet quitting, because you have the 1%, the richies of the world, saying wild, absolute, absurd nonsense things like this. This is from Ariana Huffington, which Ariana Huffington is the founder of the Huffington Post, an excellent publication. However, she sold it years ago. Her net worth is now an estimated $100 million. This is a very, very, very rich lady. So now that she's a rich lady, Ariana Huffington's new calling in life is to tackle burnout culture, which is ironic, because now that she's a rich lady, she can care about these things. But before, she was very much participating in it, encouraging it. That's how she built all of her damn money. So she decided to go on LinkedIn, which LinkedIn is, in my opinion, a corporate cesspool of utter foolishness, chaos, and it is slightly comical. Let's get into a little bit of what Ariana Huffington had to say about quiet quitting. Quiet quitting, it's a term and an idea that's not so quietly gathering steam. She thought she did something there. Okay, girl. And also one we'd need to quit on. According to Ariana, quiet quitting clearly entered our work conversation, but here's why we need to keep it out of our work life. Quiet quitting isn't just about quitting on a job. It's a step towards quitting on life. Is she serious? Rhetorical question. Yes, we shouldn't be defined by our work, but at the same time, if work is at least 8 hours of a day, are we saying that these hours we're willing to simply go through the motions with the inevitable boredom that's bound to ensue? Work can give us meaning and purpose. It's part of a thriving life. This idea that capitalism is somehow going to bring you happiness, that quiet quitting, you are quitting on life if you quiet quit, is so far removed from the everyday person. And again, is back to the original trend of last year that started these conversations of, I don't dream of labor. Most people, regardless of your title and your station in this life, do not dream of labor. Most people, working class, middle class, do not dream of labor. Most people do not find the joy in clocking in for 8 hours a day. That is a luxury not afforded to most people. The idea that if you are not invested into your labor, you are not invested into your life is such a corporate mindset of somebody who owns things and wants their workers not only to do the labor, but to be happy about it and to praise them and to be like, well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to do this labor, Ariana. I am so indebted to you. No, it's a check. It's a check for a lot of people, and there's nothing wrong with that, because the way that society is currently set up, especially in the United States of America, you cannot go and buy expensive grapes unless you have the $10. Where are you getting $10 from? From going and doing labor. That doesn't mean you have to make a joyful noise. But according to Ariana, to get into this a little bit more, so instead of quiet quitting, how about joyful joining? The first time I read this, the laugh I let out, what? Joyful joining? Is this a choir? Rather than go through the motions in a job you've effectively quit on, why not find one that inspires you, engages you, and brings you joy? Do you know how many people, particularly Black people, are systemically kept out of jobs that would give them joy? Rich people, particularly rich white women like Ariana, have no cultural understanding about what 99% of people are forced into doing. There are plenty of people, regardless of their race, that are working class that would love to be an astronaut, but it's prohibitive because the cost of education is prohibitive. I owe now still $171,000 to get a degree. So for those of you that have decided to quiet quit, kudos to you. I think it's great. Also, rope in your coworkers as co-conspirators to do it with you, because there is a really great, I would say more like a blog article that I was reading from We Are Teachers, which pointed out what really quiet quitting should be about, which is no more unpaid labor. Teachers specifically do so much unpaid labor. They get to school early to take your kids into the class, the kids that get dropped off early. They stay after school late to watch the kids that unfortunately the parents have to work late. Specifically, what about the glaring problem that education in America relies on unpaid labor, kindness, and guilt of teachers to do what's best for kids? Why? Still to this day, in the year of 2022, are parents and children being told that they need to buy school supplies for the public school? Why? As the richest country in the world, shouldn't we be able to afford decent teacher salaries, actually supplying the schools? Shout out to Abbott Elementary and for their Emmy that they just won. Shout out to Quinta Brunson. Shout out to Cheryl Lee Ralph. Her speech really moved me. It was amazing. There is an episode where her character, Cheryl Lee Ralph, she's one of the main teachers in Abbott Elementary, where she's very reluctant to fundraise on TikTok because she feels like it's exploitative. It is. For the teachers to have to be doing a dance to just get funding for the school supplies for the children. So she refuses to do it. Quinta Brunson's character then is like, no, we're going to do this. Like, I'll just do it for you. Makes this video and it goes like awry for Cheryl Lee Ralph's character, just so they can get school supplies for the kids. And because Abbott Elementary is hilarious, you're sitting there laughing, we're kikiing, we're joking around, and it is very much real. I see teachers all the time on Instagram. I have a few teachers in my family that school time comes around, they are begging for money because they are not receiving it. They are doing so much unpaid labor as teachers, so the actual real power in quiet quitting is showing, if we don't do this unpaid labor, this shit does not work. So again, I'm all for it. Quiet quitting is great. And let's take it to the next step of solidarity, of community, of actual labor rights, of, okay, and we need the money. We need appropriate time off. Shouldn't nobody be working 7 days a week? That's wild. That's wild. Nobody can function at that level. It's not good for you. A life is to be lived. And let us all collectively ignore Ariana Huffington and her joyful joining. On that note, I'll catch y'all later in the week.